Just going to do a refresh. Let's try. Play the Wikipedia game, starting at the article for bacon and ending at interstellar travel by clicking on hyperlinks within the page.
You are not logged into Spotify or Apple Music. Please log in using the connections page on the rabbit hole.
Let's talk about connections. Now you may be thinking, connections, those are those things that I use to connect my services to the R1. But those are actually basically retired or about to be retired, depending on how you look at it, because of LAM PLayground. Now the reason I wanted to talk about this today was to bring up a couple concerns that I have. And now, again, this is coming from the point of somebody who is not techie, but into tech, but I have my own concerns. A lot of those concerns revolve around LAM PLayground and how it functions, but I also then want to tail off into, sort of how the LAM PLayground's been acting for me, and then the upcoming Teach Mode announcement, which came out last week, I think it was. I can't remember exactly don't know when this video is going up, and I don't know when it was. But, so I want to talk about a few things there. So let's start with connections. Really, just to lay it all on the line here, my issue with connections is I have a really hard time trusting security in this situation. My Google account, as an example, is a very precious thing to me, because it's so integrated into so much of my life that should I lose it, or should something bad happen, or my password get taken or something and I don't have a way back to access it, I lose my phone, all of my projects work, a lot of my connections with my family, just so much of my life is entwined within that Google account that I really can't risk it. And that brings up this massive problem for me when using something like the LAM PLayground, which is that how do I ensure the safety of my account while using it? Now you might be saying, yeah, but you can delete the information from there, and you're absolutely correct. And I'm really glad that they have that feature. It's a very important feature to have. But should I want to use it when I'm not, say, sitting in front of my computer, how do I leave it logged in with confidence? That's the question that I'm putting out there into the world, and I am willing to take plenty of feedback and anything you guys want to say about it. Please tell me, because I'd love to be assured as to why it's completely safe and harmless. Again, coming from a place where I know nothing about programming or how this stuff works, but I enjoy using it, and I find myself well versed in the use of these kinds of tools and systems. Surely there's a way for me to store my password data locally on my R1 device, and that to me seems like the answer to what it is that I'm saying. I'm saying I don't want to type my password in to a virtual machine somewhere in the world. Now you might be thinking, where did you draw this line from, and where did that come from? And I'm more than willing to discuss it here, but I actually did discuss it in one of my previous videos, which was I lost my Suno account based on the connections that I made with the R1. Now, I'm fully aware that logging in to the connections tab with my Suno account meant that it was being logged in via a separate area than where I am, right? And so it meant that when they did find that it was being logged in elsewhere, they essentially blocked the account for malicious use or whatever their reasoning behind it was. And I don't blame Suno for it. I understand this is exactly what the system's supposed to do, but now when you take that up a notch to a different account and say, again, my Google account, what happens when the same thing happens again, but this time with my Google account? What stops Google from saying, well, hey, these logins don't really match. He's generally logging in from places in Australia and IPs in Australia. and systems in Australia, and now this one, I think Canada or wherever it is, I don't really know, is from somewhere else. That to me reeks of suspicious activity, and it actually got called out. I got a notification on my phone saying like, hey, we've seen, strange login activity on your account, and that's what prompted me to stop. I sort of then hit this weird place with the playground, which is I find it useful when it functions the way that it should, and it's certainly a step in the right direction for what I think a lot of people wanted for the R1, but there's this looming issue of like, I don't want to risk my accounts being blocked or stopped. And then that second level, right? Somebody who is clever enough, which I'm sure there's plenty of them, have a way to see the virtual machine that we're using and potentially capture that data. It's really not a very enticing thought. So I've seen other people, post on the subreddit and different pages and stuff that they have, different ways of storing passwords that you could do that they could be utilizing, but they're currently not. And I think I understand why. I want to, put back and say that I appreciate that what they're looking for is simplicity here, that anybody should be able to do this, which it couldn't be simpler than just actually logging in on the playground to store those details and having it usable via the R1 itself or on the LAM Playground on your desktop, wherever you're doing, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, right? That makes a lot of sense in terms of simplicity, but I am nervous about doing it for security. So it's definitely put a bit of a pause on my playground activities. The second side to that is I have a really, really hard time actually triggering the playground from my R1. I don't know how other people seem to have so much more success than I do, but every day, at least once, I try to do something. And again, they're all very generic tasks, to be clear, because I'm just, at least from my point of view, testing it out. It does say it's in beta, I think still says it's in beta, but it's just really testing. It's not really functional per se for everyday use, but it doesn't trigger. A lot of the times it'll just trigger on the R1 itself, which, to me, again, for me, that's great. I like the R1 as it is. I like the R1 being an AI in a box. I like to be able to just whip it out, push the talk button, and talk to it. I realize whip it out was a strange way to phrase that, but you get what I'm saying. Pull the R1 out and talk to it, and it just answers me, and it does a really, really great job. And again, since the beta rabbit became the standard rabbit, the answers have just been really, really clear and concise. The other part to that is it's actually a lot faster than it used to be in terms of answering and finding the information you're looking for. So, the R1, as it was initially used, has only evolved to be 100 times better. But the playground has thrown this spanner in the works that says, are you really comfortable giving all the details, at least to me? And the other side to that is, how the hell do you trigger it on the R1 without it just thinking I'm talking to it and not, the playground? It doesn't seem to discern. When I say go to Google, sometimes just doesn't do it. Or when I say go to a different website, I'm going to have some examples in here as well in this video, but go to google.com and find me peanut butter themed restaurants.
Give me a moment to look that up for you. Searching for peanut butter themed restaurants in Sydney. Here are some peanut butter themed restaurants in Sydney that you might find interesting. 1.
It just will sort of go there and not do anything, or it doesn't understand, things change, and these are the things that need to be worked out. But I'd love to see a way for the R1, especially since it has storage space, to be the storage for that security information. I feel like that's more secure, and I would be way more comfortable if there was a system for me to enter those details into my R1, either by the somewhere on the device itself, or by plugging it in. Maybe there's a passwords file. I don't know. Something along those lines would make me feel really comfortable about putting my details in there, because I feel like if it was accessing that information every time it needs to do the login, searches through a list of passwords, inputs it into the website, there's less of a chance of storage elsewhere. Still somewhat risky, but I feel like that security audit that was done a while back covered a lot of that hacking situation. So I don't know. That's a rambly video, I think, but I think you understand what I'm saying, and I'd love to hear some of your guys' thoughts on safety and security for this kind of thing, how your experience has been. I will say, again, just to clarify, the R1's still awesome, and I don't think anybody's really going to be able to convince me otherwise. And I think that the purpose of the device is still sort of finding its feet. Now, I will just quickly touch on the teach mode, which is coming. I'm really quite intrigued to see how that goes, that beta of teach mode. I have really sort of not been listening or paying much attention to what's been happening on the Discord in the last couple of weeks. But I don't think they can share that information anyway. So really, I don't think I'm missing out on anything, but I do understand what teach mode is, and I do understand what it means to a lot of people. I'm very curious as to how they've gotten around the security issues of, people using it for bad things, malicious intent. I'm very curious to see how that goes, and it's probably something that's going to come up pretty quickly, I would say, because the internet is the internet. So as soon as that's out, someone's going to try and do something terrible, and I guess we'll see what the response is. But same thing, I'm again weary about that giving login details to something that I just don't understand where it's stored. I know that it's stored somewhere there, but when you're accessing a virtual machine online, it's a very vulnerable situation, and I'd love to understand more about it. So, somebody could explain it like I'm 5, or somebody could comment below. I'd love to understand more, but until then, let's just see how deep this rabbit hole goes.